to have him here. But without further ado, I'll let him talk because what he has to say is way more interesting than what I have to say. So, Joe, please, the floor is yours. Enlighten us.
Thanks, Jorge. So if I kind of disappear off the screen, I have a terrible habit of walking around when I talk. So I'm still here. Like Jorge said, he and I have been working together for about 5 or 6 years now. We met while he wanted to cook some Spanish food, and we had a kitchen available that is in our classroom, which is the same room I'm in now. And we just kind of expanded on things. And so I've spent a lot of time at Henry Ford developing a relationship with Eastern Market. One of the big things that we do there is we produce a lot of their food for a lot of their events. And in developing that relationship, we started to incorporate culinary classes in one of the sheds, in Shed 5 in their common kitchen. And within that, we started to realize that we had a whole bunch of opportunity there to not only educate people on how to cook, but also educate not only adults, but kids on how to eat. And so what we developed was this program where we would, on Tuesdays in the summertime, parents could sign their kids up for a cooking class. We would take the kids to the Tuesday market down in Shed 3. We would allow them to pick whatever fruits and vegetables they wanted to work with that looked good, that looked exciting, and we would teach them how to cook them. And in that, we found that if the kids see the produce and they're able to have access to it, they're more likely to choose it than not. I had a personal experience with my son. One day we were walking through the market and he turned around to me and he said, "Daddy, I got to get some carrots." And I just looked at him and was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "I need carrots." And it was just because he saw these big, huge, beautiful carrots that he decided that by seeing them, he wanted to eat them. And one of the biggest problems we have in Michigan is, and not only in Michigan, but unfortunately it's throughout the country, and it's not just in urban areas, but it's also in rural areas, is access to healthy food. Over the last decade, we've made some pretty huge gains in eliminating the limit of access to healthy food, but unfortunately, we're still not there. We still have what we call food deserts. A food desert is where we have an urban area that is populated and there's no access to a supermarket or a grocery that has a full line of fruits, vegetables, healthy meats. We've seen that there was research done by Yale University. They primarily focused in on the East Coast, but a person living in a low-income block group is more likely to live in an area with limited access to a full-service supermarket. Some communities in urban areas are starting to look to improve access by meeting both the demands of the daytime population and the residential population. Now, Dearborn's a very specific example of that. We used to have, prior to March of 2020, an extra 10,000 people coming into Dearborn just for work. And in that, the community decided, hey, we need to open more restaurants. We need to have access to a farmer's market and get people who are coming in here on a daily basis access to food. Finally, determining if the community is underserved by healthy food, retailers it can be a complicated process, right? I did a quick Google search last week on Meijer and Kroger, and there's not one within the city limits of Detroit. Now, there are smaller retailers, but again, they don't have access to, or it's cost prohibitive for them to supply their neighborhood with high quality produce, high quality vegetables. We're not talking about organic, we're not talking about non-GMO, we're just talking about bell peppers, carrots, celery, onions, those types of basics that a lot of us just see every single day when we walk into our grocery. I live in Dearborn. Up until 3 or 4 years ago, there were 2 Kroger right across the street from each other. That seemed a little excessive to me. So we need to find a way to change how we're handling our food. Michigan currently, as of 2018, is ranked number 46 in the country in giving access to people in low-income areas to healthy food. Number 46. Now, we've changed a lot. Eastern Market has done a lot of work in helping to provide access, not only through food, but through education. More farmers markets are starting to open up. We're starting to see more and more people opening up urban farms. And all of these things help to provide access to the food. Unfortunately, that's only part of the equation. The other thing we have to do is we have to start educating people to understand that a calorie-dense diet that's full of fruits, vegetables, and fresh meats is way better for them health-wise and limits the risk. It doesn't limit the actual disease, but it limits the risk of diseases like diabetes, obesity, heart disease, things like that. But we have to educate. And it's unfortunate that if I walk into the grocery today, I can get more calories per dollar in the junk food aisle, cookies, chips, things like that, than I can in the produce aisle. And that needs to change as well. So what is considered healthy and nutritious? Well, at the college, we talk about this a lot. We're not just teaching our students how to cook, but we're teaching them how to cook with a conscience. We value, first and foremost, high calorie, highly dense, safe, clean, wholesome, healthy. Safe, clean, wholesome are the three tenets that we talk about all the time in the classroom, because you can go and get, some sketchy looking fish or some sketchy looking beef that might be a little bit green and just trim off some of those nasty bits, if you will. But it's not wholesome. It's not safe. We can go to a small grocery or a small, liquor store that may have some produce in one of the aisles. But again, is that produce, is it safe? Is it wholesome? Most times it's not. Most times we're looking at produce that is of a lower quality. Again, we're not talking about organic. We're not talking about non-GMO. We're just talking about something that is fresh and wholesome. When we start to eat like that, we start to become healthier. I've personally seen an example of a young girl who has epilepsy, who was removed from her medication mainly because we changed her diet. She stopped eating high processed, high fructose corn syrup, ladled foods, and she began to eat whole foods, fresh fruits, fresh produce, fresh vegetables, fresh meat. Her mom began cooking for her. And within 3 years, she was removed off her medication and has never had a episode. And the nice thing about this is this started when the girl was 7 or 8 years old, and now finally got to go to college. And well, the pandemic kind of screwed that over for her. But at the end, she was able to feel confident, and so was her mother, that she would be able to go away to Central Michigan and know that she would more than likely not have any issues. So it really all comes down to how can we help get access to this food. Eastern Market has a whole bunch of different programs that they run. One of them is called the Eastern Market. Well, at their market, they have a market that they actually take food and they set up markets in different neighborhoods. And what they do is they try to sell some of the food that the farmers aren't selling at Eastern Market out and provide access. They sell it at a lower cost. They're now starting to accept SNAP and a couple of other different payment methods through welfare programs, all in order to help provide healthy food to our citizens. If I don't have a car and I live in specific neighborhoods in Detroit, I cannot get to the Kroger that's on 8 Mile Road. I can't get to the Meijer that's in Grosse Pointe. Now, there are a couple of different things that we can do. We can support our legislature in supporting the Healthy Food Access for All Americans Act. This is a program that is helping major retailers fund opening groceries within impoverished neighborhoods. This is a new bill that started back in February that's been pushed into the legislature. They are trying to get it passed, but it needs help. And, you know, as a chef, we can only do so much. I can teach my students all day long about, you know, having a conscience, making good choices when they select the food that they're going to serve in their future restaurants, trying to convince their bosses maybe to change the way they select food when they bring it in. But it really takes the entire community. And we're at a point now where I think we've seen some of the horrific pictures of mounds of potatoes that were left in fields that couldn't get on trucks, that couldn't get to groceries. We've all experienced going to the grocery and not seeing the items that we really wanted. And still today, I'll walk into Kroger and, you know, there won't be any mushrooms, or there won't be any bananas, or there won't be any apples. And, you know, I think it takes this moment for all of us to realize that we can change this and we can fix this. If we don't, we're going to leave a whole bunch of people behind, not just because they're impoverished, but because they can't get food. It seems strange to me that in 2021, we're still talking about 46% of our population that doesn't have access to healthy food in Detroit. That doesn't seem right to me. And so we are still trying every single day to educate. And that's the biggest issue I think that we have, is we have to teach. We will go to elementary schools. Pre-pandemic, we were allowed to go to elementary schools and teach these kids about healthy foods, and we would do cooking demonstrations. That seemed to change a lot of things. And now the issue is, okay, what do we do through this pandemic in order for us to get to that point where we can continue these education programs? We're still not allowed to go into Eastern Market and teach classes. We are trying to find creative ways in order to help continue to educate our citizens so that they can find this food, or at the very least, convince some of our major retailers to start opening outlets in these neighborhoods. About 7 years ago, there was a bunch of furor over Whole Foods opening up in downtown Detroit. And a lot of people who didn't understand what was going on said, well, wait a minute, why would one of the traditionally most expensive retailers open up in Detroit? They are just going to limit even more access to healthy food by pricing the locals out of the market. The president and CEO of Whole Foods purposely, if you go in there, you will see that they are 37 to 40% cheaper than the Whole Foods up in West Bloomfield. They purposely priced all of their products at a lower price in that market so that they could bring locals into the grocery. I don't know if it's working or not, but I do know at least they had a conscience when they did it and tried to open it up to everyone as opposed to just the ones that could afford it. That's been a huge issue, I think, within the entire country, is access to healthy food can be cost prohibitive. It doesn't just mean, can I not get there? Can I afford it when I actually get there? And again, that goes back to being able to get more calories per dollar in processed food than I can in fresh food. So I think we're at a point now where we're starting to see a lot of our government starting to recognize that, hey, wait a minute, this is wrong. Our food system has been messed up for a really long time. Things that were done in a way to help promote and help get access to food, for example, our school lunch program. It was done with good intention, but unfortunately it failed in providing nutrition. Our school lunch program is infamous for being able to get rid of excess corn and soy but not necessarily provide nutrition to the kids that are in schools. We're now looking at this and saying, well, okay, hang on. Well, we can provide free lunches to our students who can't afford those. Well, that requires the schools getting rid of vending machines that sell sodas, that sell candy bars, and all of those things. Again, we have those in our schools. We have them. Well, if we are still selling all of that junk, are we really promoting healthy food? We're not. So we're at a point when I see a couple of people making some things in the chat here about Aldi is a store. Again, Aldi is one of those stores that doesn't provide the highest quality in wholesome food. It is a low cost provider, which unfortunately is going out of business. They will close all of their stores in the United States within the next 2 years. And so, you know, again, limiting even more access to healthy food. Aside from that, you know, what do we need to do? We need new store construction. We need to retrofit existing stores to be able to house more healthy food. We need to create more food banks. We have some here in Detroit. And then finally, I think some temporary access merchants like farmers markets. You know, Dearborn has been really great in expanding their farmers market and trying to make it inclusive for everyone, putting it in different locations to see where the best location is. We spoke with the Chamber of Commerce about hosting it on our campus a couple of years ago, thinking that that would be a more central location. But again, it comes down to convincing the right people to make those decisions in order to keep this food coming into the area and being accessible to everyone. And again, it doesn't mean organic, it doesn't mean non-GMO, it just means fresh produce, fresh meats. Does anybody have any questions as we're going?
Do you think there's any way to change the school lunch program? I mean, it is really just horrible.
It is terrible. It is absolutely terrible. And I think the government is trying. There is a couple of different programs that they're trying to implement. But again, it comes down to the local districts really, truly wanting to dial in and make sure that they're doing all the right things. Because at the end of the day, it puts a major strain on those kitchen staffs to be able to make sure that they are consistently and constantly preparing food that is calorie dense and nutritious. It's easy for me to call Cisco and get a whole bunch of processed food, drop it in deep fryers or throw it in ovens and feed, you know, 600, 700, 800 kids at a time. But there is now a federal government program that is paying for these kids' lunches, provided that they are calorie dense and nutritious. So there's some hope. It's just going to take a generational shift. Remember, the school lunch program has been going on since the 50s, and that was it was a way to eliminate corn and soy surplus that was in the silos in the Midwest, right after the government decided that they were going to subsidize corn and soy. Every farmer in the country, it seemed like, was growing only corn and soy because it was a easy, simple, guaranteed revenue stream, so that what happened in the 30s wouldn't happen again, where families were losing their farms. Done in, again, with a good conscience and good intentions, but failed miserably in providing nutritious food to our citizens.
We have another question from Noah. Noah, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I was wondering, going off of that question, even if we were able to get healthy foods into some school districts, like we were successful in, you know, upgrading the system, so to speak, one of my ideas, or one of the concepts I was taught about one of the problems of the system, is that even if we were to incorporate better food options, that students wouldn't necessarily choose them. That if given the choice between normal food options and unhealthy food options, that a lot of students would just go toward the unhealthy options, making the change pointless, because ultimately, if we can't stop their behavior and their food habits, then it doesn't matter what we offer them. So how do we take into account the wants of the students themselves?
So I'm gonna go hard line on that. I would not give them the choice. Every option is nutritious, healthy, and wholesome, or they bring their own lunch. And that's the decision that's being made by the parent. The parent needs to understand that you make a decision when you go to the grocery what you're going to buy. If you send your kid with a bag of chips, some Hostess products, and I don't know, a sugary drink, then you're making the decision not to provide your child with a healthy lunch. Now, part of the free and reduced fee lunch program is that the schools have to provide every option that is healthy, wholesome, and nutritious. So that kind of I think that kind of answers your question and potentially combats the issue of the student actually making the choice. They don't have one to make.
Should we be taking more of an emphasis on better educating our students into developing better eating habits, so that way, even when they're outside of the schools, that they're still adopting these habits? And if so, how would we go about doing so? Any ideas?
I think some of the things that I've worked on in the past, where we're bringing chefs into some of the elementary schools, into the middle schools and the high schools, especially in the impoverished neighborhoods, has worked. Part of the issue, again, I think it has to be some sort of curriculum in the elementary schools where they spend a little bit of time, whether it's 45 minutes, a half hour, just discussing, healthy eating habits. When I was a kid growing up, and I'm kind of old, in high school, I had home economics, and we learned about cooking food, and we didn't take stuff out of a bag, and we didn't take stuff out of a box, and we cooked it, we ate it, and, I appreciated the healthy food that I was learning how to cook. And I grew up in a house where fresh food was always something that was important and something that we valued. If we teach them at a young age to value healthy food, they'll end up being able to make better choices as they grow. And I think, again, our school districts need to start implementing these things younger, or in lower age groups. The more I hear about home economics classes being removed from high schools and from middle schools, it makes me wonder what we're teaching the kids about life skills. I tell my students every single day, I don't expect every one of them to go and open up a restaurant and win all kinds of awards. I hope some of them are going to walk out of here, maybe never go into the industry, but if they can at least walk out of here with some life skills and understand how to cook healthy food for their family, then I've done my job as an instructor and as a chef.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is great. We have a question from Courtney. Courtney, go ahead, please.
Hi, everyone. So I just want to piggyback off of kind of what Noah was saying and his expression. So I really believe that a major part of transforming the new generation and how they see food and how they source their food and how they regulate their own nutrition is being intentional about how we approach the parents and how we approach educating them, because as anything, a child can go through those classes, elementary, middle, and high school. But if the parent is working and they do not have ready access to those foods or those healthy options, then when they get home, it's not going to be a matter of healthy food.
Correct, which is why we need to implore our retailers to start opening more locations within those same neighborhoods that
And-
they are move into
and
and
not
provide
only
more.
Yeah, but not only that, but when we're educating and providing those things to provide incentives, such as, like you said, the access. So, such as a Myers gift card for, your fruits and veggies, or providing those local farmers markets or those local school markets. There was a point in time where fruits and veggies were being brought into the schools so that they could be purchased and brought home, to make that accessibility not an option.
Yep, I remember having a small farmer's market. It was more of a produce stand that was around the corner from my house growing up, and I never thought about not having access to that. And so those are the types of things that we need to look at and provide not only incentive for the parent, but provide incentive for the retailers to want to be able to open their facilities within these neighborhoods. Within the
Chef, can I ask you a
Go ahead.
question? Why do you focus on retailers? Why do you not focus on local farmers, local urban farmers? Like why
Yeah, we have
feel that?
done that. We've brought so many local farmers and local urban farms into Eastern Market, and given them access to the local residents. We've taken a couple of different buses throughout the last couple of years. Again, pre-pandemic, we had a program where we were taking buses into neighborhoods and bringing people into the market, helping them shop, educating them on what to purchase, how to purchase it, even how to cook it, and then getting them back to their homes so that transportation wasn't an issue to get access to healthy food. One of the other programs that we've worked on is the Eastern Market Farm Stand, where we're taking, we have 20 mobile pop-up farm stands every week through June and September, offering fresh produce and pantry items at sites all around Metro Detroit. So we are kind of going around the retailers and saying, hey, this is what we're doing. We are providing access. Now, who's going to step in with all these hundreds of millions of dollars and help us? Because we can't just do it on our own. We can staff and fund 20 different farm markets, but once a week isn't enough. We need to have access 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Like you said, the mom who's coming home from her second job, because I've worked in multiple restaurants with multiple people who were working for me, and I was their second job, or I was their first job and they were leaving for their second job, who were just trying to make enough money to get to the grocery, and the grocery wasn't even anywhere near their home. And so we have to continue to provide access through programs like Eastern Market is doing, and the different farmers markets throughout the different cities in the suburbs, and what these urban farmers are doing as well, and implore our large-scale retailers to start helping.
Thank you, Chef.
Yes, ma'am.
We have time for more questions, and I think the questions are very engaging. So please go ahead. I saw a few comments from Patrick regarding the soil to service. I don't know if Patrick, if you want to talk about that a little bit, but please feel free to jump in with the questions or post them in the chat, and I'll read them out loud. Either way, whichever you feel more comfortable.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. It wasn't so much a question, just a comment that the accessibility, affordability issue is certainly really, really important. But one area I've been trying to work on myself in my own courses and then in partnerships is with just building culinary knowledge, like knowledge how to cook. I think we've lost a lot of that nationally, not just, in Michigan, and building that back up. That's a huge component of fixing our broken sort of relationship with food, frankly, in this country, right? Is how do you take relatively cheap, affordable ingredients, turn them into something that's exciting, nutritious, right, healthy. A lot of that knowledge, I think, has been lost due to this over reliance on processed food, eating out, et cetera, right? So I don't know if you have any comments on that and how to turn that around and how to engage people with learning how to cook again. And I realize the challenges there too. People are working, multiple jobs, they're coming home, it's late, they have kids, there's homework to do, there's all these things, right? How do you convince people that it's worth the time and the effort to get back in the kitchen, so to speak, right? And because the payoffs are often longer term, right? So how do you get people back doing that?
Right, the payoffs are super long term and they're really intangible. Just saying, hey, you're going to lower your risk isn't a tangible benefit to me cooking food. And that's one of the things that I think I fight all the time is, I'm a single dad with 3 kids. I get it. I get home and the last thing I want to do after spending all day in the kitchen is cook more food. But I also know that if I don't provide nutritious food for them, who's going to do it? The elementary school isn't going to do it. And so I think as we continue to develop programs and as our industry, our hospitality and culinary industry continues to grow in Metro Detroit, it's still pretty nascent, we will find that I've found that there's been a lot more interest in culinary classes, and the ones at Eastern Market, we're charging $15 for. And we're trying to price those at a price point that isn't painful for most people. You could go to Solotab and spend $120 on a culinary class, and that's fine. I think if we start to put more of an emphasis, and I saw your comment about soil to service, and I think what they're doing is great. And I think more chefs need to start coming to the forefront and saying, hey, you know what, we're here to help. We want to change the way we're doing things. We want to fix this. We're happy to start teaching. We're happy to start showing the benefits of cooking food, and not necessarily, and I agree that we've got to take some humble ingredients and make them delicious and make them special. And that's a big challenge that I challenge my students with all the time is what can you do with an onion or what can you do with an eggplant? But just getting beyond that, just getting to the point of actually cooking it and enjoying it. And then we'll get to let's transform it into something super special. I think we're lacking that. And again, I would love to see more, I guess the term culinary in elementary schools, I think needs to start and middle schools needs to start to happen a little bit more and teach these kids about cooking and about food and developing those life skills. It's the same as teaching, what are we doing with life skills with banking? Are we teaching our kids how to save money? If the parent isn't doing it, who is?
Great, thanks.
Meanwhile, you start thinking about questions or comments, as many of you know, I come from a different culture where we value food tremendously, and it has not only a nutritious, healthy value, but a social value. I don't know, that's something that we haven't touched a lot today so far, but I would like to give you a couple of comments, Joe, and hopefully you can tell us what's your take on it. One is the social value of food, and also the idea of health through food, which I'm not sure it's 100% across the board in this environment that we are. That's one. And then along those lines, I know you do it in your classes because you're in culinary studies, so you teach your students what's nutritious, what not, and what's valuable and what's not. But what can you do in other areas in order to instill this idea that could be across the board for a number of disciplines that you could see that we could do in classes? I don't know if you had any comments or any tips for that.
I guess I look at my experience and I always look back to family traditions. I spent a lot of time with my family cooking food, not just, primarily around the holidays, but there was always, something cooking in the kitchen. My mom always tried to make dinner when she got home from work. If we can bring that back somehow, whether it's through, our culture, our holidays, the things that we do, I'm willing to bet that, and I asked my students as we were getting to know each other last week, do you have food memories of holidays, of things that are traditional to you? And if so, if we're taking that time to cook during the holidays, why aren't we taking that time to cook during the week? I see a lot of people saying, oh, convenience, 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 convenience. Okay, well, your convenience is eventually going to kill you. It's as simple as that. I see more people now that have gastro diseases and are more sick now than I've ever known in my entire life. And I truly, honestly believe that it is down to the amount of processed foods that we are consuming. Whether it's the amount of corn, the amount of soy, the amount of things that are hidden in, I'm not talking about things like xanthan gum is not something that's going to make you sick. It's not processed, but we see it in a lot of things because it's a stabilizer. We use xanthan here in our culinary classes to show students how to thicken sauces, how to do a bunch of stuff with it. But I'm talking about things that are processed out of corn and soy that have started to creep into our diet so much that our bodies can't process them. And we truly don't know what the effects are of those things. But again, going back to culture, going back to our family traditions, we need to bring those things back. We need to find that time to be around that table or in that kitchen, even if it's just once or twice a week, in order to help start promoting cooking together, spending time together, having that moment where we sit down and eat a healthy meal. And again, meat, produce, grains. Did I answer?
Yes. Thank you. I'll take one more and I'll shut up and let other people ask. I've seen in other countries that they do a label code for foods, whether that's color or not. So for instance, they would put a red label in certain foods that are not so healthy and even a black label, and they might even add labels like that. Are you in favor of something like that? Which would be something that should be useful here. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I think it would be useful. I think it would be really difficult to implement because these manufacturers of our quote unquote unhealthy foods have such tremendous lobbying power. I mean, think about the power that a company like Coca-Cola has within our government in forcing through legislation that doesn't, disallow the use of things like aspartame. That's a known carcinogen.
Thank you. We have time for more questions. Please go ahead, either through the chat or jump in, please.
This isn't particularly on the topic, but what do you think of all these like food meal comes at your door and then you put it together? As a biologist, the packaging is just killing me, just seeing how much packaging and waste there is that way. But it seems like more people are interested in cooking. I mean, there's so many commercials, it must be working somewhere, but.
So I agree with you on the packaging. I think the last year and a half, we've used more single-use packaging than we have in a very long time, but that's a topic for a different day. I think those things are really cool. If it's getting people to start to cook again, then it can't be bad. you know, if people are starting to, and I've looked at some of the ingredients that are coming in these boxes. I have a couple of friends who are using them, and not chefs, but people who want to learn how to cook better. And if you can get a box that has a whole bunch of ingredients in it and a recipe, and you can just follow the recipe and cook it, you know what, we're on the right path. It's a step in the right direction. If it's getting more people in the kitchen, it's getting more people to eat things that they wouldn't normally choose. If I'm making quinoa as opposed to, I don't know, making French fries with canola, and well, canola oil is pretty healthy, but you know, making French fries out of some potato that's sprayed with cornstarch and whatever else, then we're on the right path. And I'd like to see those things continue, and hopefully at some point, the people who are using those things will say, hey, you know what, I can just go buy this stuff at the grocery now. I have this bank of recipes that I've used. I don't need HelloFresh anymore. Now I can go to the grocery and I can understand how to buy things, and I know how to cook them, and I'm feeling more confident, because at the end of the day, I think a lot of this has to do with a person's confidence in their ability to cook. And that anxiety that comes with it, with, oh my God, is this going to be any good? Or if I spend all this money on, you know, this piece of salmon, am I just going to destroy it and have it be inedible? Well, that's a,
Sorry, Chef,
yes.
are you interested, like, I know you were saying that you are not able to get into schools right now. However, are you interested in partnering with other organizations who are fighting food insecurities? I am a director at Brightmore Artisans Collective. I don't know if you've ever heard of us, but we fight food insecurities in the Brightmore neighborhood. And one of the things that we do, or that I've been heading, is cooking classes. So we have cooking classes for ages 4 to 11, and then we split it up because our middle schoolers and high schoolers don't like the little people, but we have middle school and high school classes as well. You mentioned one of your missions or one of your goals was to have more chefs come in and be willing to provide services and information and classes, possibly to encourage that. Is that something that you would be willing to do, or were you staying away because of your own COVID protocols? Because right now we're up and running. We have classes every week.
I was only staying away because Eastern Market is forcing me to stay. But yeah, I'm absolutely happy to discuss it further with you and see if we can't get myself or some of the other chefs that are in our department, or even some of our more advanced students, to come over and work with you guys. We'd love to do it.
Awesome. I'm gonna get your contact information and give you mine, because I think this would be a wonderful partnership.
I agree. It would be a lot of fun. And I say fun simply because that's what, you know, we are, that's how we view this, right? When we go in and get to teach kids how to cook, or get to teach adults how to cook, we try to make it so that the experience is enjoyable. We want people in the kitchen. We want them to see just how much fun it can be to cook something, and then, you know, take this raw produce and turn it into something super delicious. And then when they take that bite, they smile and they're super happy. And I am sending you my email address on the chat. Not to everyone, just to Ms. Tuck. Anything else?
Any other questions, any comments? I'm seeing in the chat all kinds of comments that people are thinking about, you know, just raising awareness of some things that are already happening in Detroit, Metro Detroit. Also talking about initiatives on campus, off campus, plans for classes. So this is sparking all kinds of conversation. That's great. again, if anybody wants to comment or ask anything to our speaker.
I just feel like the college kids this age are really interested in cooking. At least all my kids and their friends are really into it, way more than I ever was. So that's kind of encouraging. It seems like all the stuff on YouTube and all the stuff on TikTok and all that, they're like teaching each other cooking stuff. So I think it's pretty cool. But I mean, yeah, there's still a lot of definitely big business and a lot of issues with the processing of food. There's a great book called The Lentil Underground that shows how a bunch of farmers in Montana just got tired of the way processors controlled them, and they came up with their own, way of processing and so on. So, there's a lot of little things happening, but yeah, to get a huge change, it's going to take a lot. But I'm a little bit encouraged by the younger kids.
Also, whoever had the thing about food prep on the weekends, that's definitely a way to make your own kits for kids who are having to put dinner together on their own. You could just put it on a baking sheet, or you could have vegetables ready to go into an omelet or whatever, and just have a box for each day or a container for each day, reusable container.
I shared the book that you mentioned, Pat, in the chat, the Lentil Underground, and yeah, I do think there's, and it's growing, it's true, not enough regular involvement of people in the buying produce and cooking process. Whether those, I mean, if you start, the sooner you start, the better, but make it part of your life, basically. Make it part of your everyday life. That's what I think I'm missing here. I remember, and some of you have been mentioning, I remember at home, my family, my mother getting me involved in terms of buying stuff, bringing it home, putting it in the fridge, prep it a little bit, think about the menu for the week, things of that nature. That's what I'm, groundwork, basically, everyday groundwork that we don't do now. So it's enlightening to see some of it doing. I'll shut up there. Any other comments? Anything else that we want to ask Joe Cosenza?
So one of the last things that, the most recent things that we've done here to help, because I just saw a comment about the groundwork. We have taken the students up to the hill where the little farm plots are in between our two campuses. We go up there every spring, and then we've started our own little garden in a patch near our building. So we're starting to teach our students. We've been doing this for about 3 or 4 years now, and we're teaching our students literally, from seed to plate. So in the spring, we'll turn the soil, we'll plant seeds, and then in the fall, we'll harvest. And so our students are seeing, how to care for the plant, how to raise the plant, and then take it, harvest it, and then start preparing it and cooking it.
Excellent. Yes, I'm hearing even growing.
At that point, we can continue that by promoting and allowing and encouraging people to grow a pot of tomatoes in your backyard or in your front yard or on the side of the house, and start small. And as people start to see that and they start to open their eyes to, wow, this is really good. Why does this taste so much better off the vine than it does in the grocery? And then we can start talking not just about eating healthy food, but now we can start talking about sustainable farming, sustainable fishing, responsibilities in how we fish the oceans and the lakes, responsibility in how we raise animals, and take that conversation even further. But it has to start with getting that access to that food, understanding that it tastes better, and then understanding why.
Very good. This is excellent. I think we're gonna let it be for now. I want to thank everyone for being around and coming for this. It's very engaged conversation. I'll confess that I think we're preaching a little bit to the choir. All of us here are convinced, so let's keep spreading the word out there. Again, thank you for coming here, but more than anything, let's thank our speaker, Joseph Cosenza, again, chef and professor in the culinary arts program, the Hereford Community College. Give him a round of applause. However you want to show your love, please do. We really appreciate your time, Joe, here.
Can I have one shameless plug?
Of course.
All right, so we have a student-run restaurant. My students are the kids who are cooking the food. We'd love to see everyone come in. We're open Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays for lunch from 11:30 to 1:15, and we're open on Wednesdays for dinner from 5:30 to 7:45. We are focused on local, seasonal, and sustainable produce and meats. Everything that we use comes from local farms. We do not outsource anything from commercial farms. We change our menu about 3 or 4 times a semester. We'll open February 2nd. I will put our website in the chat. It's henryfordculinary.com. Our menus are online. Everything, all the information you need is there.
This
We
is
look forward to seeing everyone.
Yeah, this is great. I've been to one of their dinners and it's amazing. So yeah, we and it's just next door to us. So I'll let you plug in the link and we'll let people.
Oh, I forgot to change it to everyone.
Okay, we got it. And
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Joe. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, Jorge. For you as well.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna go start my class.
Go. Have fun. Thank you, Joe.
See you.